I was just so into everything. My ideas were just flowing. My brain was just firing. It felt amazing for someone who had been in a depressive state for so long. Hey guys, it's Nia. Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, go ahead and hit subscribe down below and hit the bell if you want to get notifications for when I post. I guess let's loosen up before I bare my soul to the internet. What do you think about when you think about the word bipolar? I know that a lot of people think about people who go from happy to sad, people who are bitches, people who just can't get their shit together, people who are crazy, people who just like have no emotional restriction. So what do you think when you hear the word bipolar? Because chances are you might be kind of wrong. Bipolar disorder, for me, is something that I've been living with probably for most of my life, probably since I was a kid. I think that the first time that I probably went through a hypomanic state was, I think I probably had a lot of hypomanic states in junior high, middle school. I think that I wouldn't have classified them as that. I think I would have just classified it as being the class clown or just being funny or having a lot of energy. I don't think that I would have classified it as bipolar disorder. Actually, a lot of kids aren't diagnosed bipolar because it doesn't show up until later in life. For me, my first depressive state was in 7th grade. We moved from California to Nebraska, and I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle the new school. I couldn't handle losing one of my parents. It was just really brutal for me. And so I remember waking up every day. I remember waking up, just staying in my clothes, going to school, coming home, not changing, going to bed. And that was what, that's what my existence was for part of 7th grade. I don't know how long it lasted for, but it lasted clearly too long in the eyes of my mother. But that was my first depressive state. And so bipolar disorder is that you go from hypomanic states or high states to low states, which is a depressive state. And for bipolar 2 disorder, which is what I have, a lot of times you're in a depressive state for so long that it's misdiagnosed. It's misdiagnosed as major depressive disorder or dysthymia. And a lot of times it's misdiagnosed because when people are feeling in their high state, in their great state, when they're feeling manic or hypomanic, they don't go get help, because why would you go get help if you're feeling amazing and not depressed? You would just stay at home and take advantage of that. And so for me as a kid, that was playing really loud in class or just laughing manically, but it was just living on top of the world and being in such a great mood all the time. So that's what that was for me. As my life has gone on, though, it's changed. It's been different. So one characteristic of a manic state is just risk-taking and feeling elated and euphoric. And for me, that really came into play in college, because in college, I was on my own. I wasn't in boarding school anymore. I could do whatever I wanted. I had my own car, and I ended up going and hooking up with a lot of men. And that was just not a safe thing to do. But in my mind at the time, it seemed like the best idea and just not scary at all. And it's most likely that I was in hypomanic states and swinging, and those were good days. And on those good days, I felt like connecting with people, and I felt like interacting, and I felt okay in my body. And so I would go hook up with men. With that would also come severe downs. I remember not getting out of bed to go to class. I remember just skipping classes. I remember just not being able to get out of my bed to go to my sorority stuff, just not being able to do anything, just being prisoner to my depression at the same time. And it would throw me off how I could feel in such a good place one day and such a bad place the next day, or even like hour to hour. It was just horrible. And I remember the first time that I saw a psychiatrist in college and him mentioning, maybe you have bipolar 2 disorder if the medication doesn't work. But I never really took my medication, and I never really was sure if it was working or not, so I didn't know how to tell him whether or not it was working, when in reality it probably didn't work. So I went unmedicated for a really long time. And the first time that I remember having a hypomanic streak and just remembering it consciously and being like, this is the best moment of my life, and this is what it feels like to not have depression, and I'm in such a good place, and just feeling like I was on top of the world, was a couple years ago. I decided to start my business, and I decided that not only was I starting a business, I was starting it in 2 weeks, and I was going to just learn how to do it, and it was going to be amazing. With no business experience, no previous work in business, and I made a decision. I spent the next 3 weeks hyped up. It was ridiculous. I was just going, and I compared it at the time to being the Energizer Bunny. I was doing laundry at 4 in the morning. I was crafting until 4 in the morning. I was designing stickers until 5 a.m. And then I wake up at 7 a.m. just ready to take on the day, ready to go, and just crazy excited about everything. I was just so into everything. My ideas were just flowing. My brain was just firing. It felt amazing for someone who had been in a depressive state for so long. And to have the freedom to use my mind, because in my depression, sometimes it just feels like I'm trapped and that there's no way to use my mind. And so having the opposite of that was amazing. I was texting my friend and I was saying, what if this is who I really am? What if all this time I've been like the wrong person? Like I wasn't really depressed. Like it was just a phase, and this is who I really am. And I'm the kind of person who just sleeps 4 hours and does my laundry in the middle of the night. What if this is who I am? This is scary. This is scaring me. I just want it to end. And I really wanted that hypomanic state to end because I was exhausted. I was exhausting myself. I was overexerting myself and just going crazy. And finally, it ran its course, and I came out of it, and I went back into a really deep depression because I crashed, and it was really hard to function after I crashed because I wasn't used to it at that point. I wasn't used to slogging through and not being able to do anything. I was used to being able to take on the world, and that was gone. About a month later, it happened again for a week. It wasn't as intense, but it felt once again like things were rolling. There was a train going, and I was kind of the Energizer Bunny again. And I remember being afraid this time, afraid that it wasn't going to end, afraid that it was going to last for 5 weeks instead of 3 weeks, and I wasn't going to sleep, and exhaustion was just going to be horrible again. And I remember being so worried that I had talked to my psychiatrist about it, and I told her what had happened, and that was the first time that I'd brought up a hypomanic state, and that was when we began to assess my medication. So for anyone who's wondering, I am very pro medication. I believe that meds do not make you weak. They just allow you to live your life in a normal way, or as close to normal as possible. So for me, for about 2 years prior to this moment, I had been trying different medications just about every month or every 2 months, and none of them were working for me. They were just not doing anything, which for people with bipolar disorder, a lot of times SSRIs and medication for depression tend to not work. They can actually sometimes make symptoms of bipolar worse. And so instead of thinking about it as maybe she's just med resistant and not, we just haven't found the right medication and meds just aren't working for her, it was maybe we're just trying the completely wrong type of medication. Maybe we need to try mood stabilizers. So that's what we did. We tried mood stabilizers, and still I wasn't reacting favorably to them. I was either having no reaction, a bad reaction. Sorry guys, camera break. My roommate came home. I went off to treatment for my eating disorder. They took me off all of my meds then, and we just went about trying different meds when I got back out. And they weren't working. And one day in my support group that I'm in, one girl said to me, have you tried this certain medication? It worked for me. It was the only one that worked for me. And she was like, you should try it. And I was a little skeptical because no meds had worked. Why would a new med work for me? So I kind of just put it in the back of my mind. And then about a week later, I was helping my friend move, and she also has bipolar disorder, only hers has been like very severe. And she also mentioned what medication she was on. It happened to be the same medication. And so to me, it was kind of like, well, maybe I should think about this. Maybe I should try this. Maybe I should just ask. Because if this is what works for different people with bipolar, maybe it would work for me. I went to my psychiatrist appointment and I asked her if I could try that. She said that was for people with bipolar disorder, and we didn't know whether I had bipolar disorder officially or not, but it was worth a shot. And honestly, this is the first medication that has done anything for me. So now, being bipolar and medicated, it's kind of like a new chapter in my life, because I'm now aware of when I'm in a manic state and what a manic state looks like for me and feels like for me. And I can tell when I'm swinging, even if it's just for an hour or 3 hours, as opposed to just going my whole life without knowing. Being on my medication, it knocks out all of my hypomanic states, and it brings up my depressive state to a more normal-ish level. So I'm still at what I like to call an okay slump, because I'm still depressed. It's still kind of a slump. It's still not great. I still have low motivation, and I do have days where I really just can't get out of bed. But I do feel more okay, and there are times when I can still feel the productivity and feel like I want to do things, even when I'm still depressed. And I know that bipolar is different for everyone. Bipolar can look like rage, or it can look like just spending money crazily. It can look like drug addiction. It can look like anything. And I feel like I'm grateful that for me, it looks like productivity and ideas and creativity and wanting to do things. Like, I'm so glad that that's what it is for me, because I know that it could be totally different. But that's just what my bipolar story is, what my life with bipolar is like. So thank you guys for sticking with me through my story and listening. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment them down below, and I will check them out and respond to what I feel like I can. But I'm happy to answer just about anything. I'm a pretty open book. And definitely hit the like button, subscribe, and click the bell. Thanks, guys.